Have you ever wondered how a powerless girl, stolen from her family and sold as a sex slave, could one day rule one of the greatest empires in history? How could a single woman, born in the cold lands of Ruthenia, end up rewriting the very rules of the mighty Ottoman court? This is not a legend. This is the true, astonishing story of Roxolana, known to history as Hurrem Sultan, the slave who became an empress. Around the year 1502, in a small town in Ruthenia, part of modern-day Ukraine, a young girl named Anastasia, sometimes called Alexandra Lisovska, was born into a Christian family. Her childhood was marked by quiet village life, never suspecting that everything would change violently in a single moment. One day, Crimean Tatar raiders stormed her village, burning homes and dragging people away in chains. Young Anastasia was among those captured, thrust into a terrifying journey south to the slave markets of Constantinople, where human lives were bartered like cloth and spices. There, she was purchased for the imperial harem of Sultan Suleiman I, a place both feared and desired by captured women across lands, where they would be trained not only in the arts of dance and music, but also in poetry, languages, conversation, and the subtle art of survival. Inside this hidden world of silks and shadows, Anastasia was given the name Roxolana, likely a reference to her Ruthenian or Slavic origin, and later, because of her bright and cheerful nature that captivated those around her, she earned the name Hurrem, meaning the cheerful one in Persian. What set Roxolana apart was not merely her striking red hair or lively eyes, but her quick intelligence, her humor, and an instinctive understanding of the delicate power games within the palace walls. At that time, the young Sultan Suleiman, newly enthroned, ruled over a vast empire stretching from Budapest to Baghdad. Among the hundreds of concubines hoping to catch his attention, it was Roxolana who captivated him. Her laughter, wit, and depth made her stand out from the others, who were taught to remain silent and obedient. The Sultan kept returning to her, and their bond deepened into something extraordinary in the history of the Ottoman court. But this closeness sparked bitter jealousy from Mahidevran Sultan, Suleiman's chief consort and the mother of his eldest son, Prince Mustafa. Their rivalry would soon become legendary. According to some sources, the tension boiled over into violence, with Mahidevran allegedly striking Roxolana in a jealous rage. Suleiman's response to distance himself from Mahidevran only strengthened Roxolana's place at his side. What happened next broke centuries of rigid Ottoman tradition. Historically, sultans never married concubines, and once a woman bore a son, she was typically sent away with the child to govern a distant province. This practice, rooted in palace law, prevented any single woman from accumulating too much power in the imperial court. Yet, around 1533, to the shock and scandal of the entire empire, Suleiman freed Roxolana from slavery and married her legally. She became his Hasaki Sultan, the Sultan's chief consort, a position no former slave had ever held. From that point forward, Roxolana's influence expanded beyond the gilded cage of the harem. She advised Suleiman on political and diplomatic matters, and she established charitable foundations and grand architectural works to leave a legacy that reached beyond palace intrigue. Among them were the Hasaki Sultan complex in Istanbul, which included a mosque, hospital, school, and soup kitchen that fed thousands of poor citizens daily. She also funded baths, bridges, and religious buildings, embedding her name into the very fabric of the empire. Even more surprising to many historians, Roxolana directly corresponded with foreign rulers, including King Sigismund II Augustus of Poland, demonstrating her diplomatic reach, something almost unheard of for an Ottoman woman. But behind this public face of piety and philanthropy lay ruthless court politics. Roxolana bore several children, including Selim II, who would ultimately succeed Suleiman. The greatest threat to her children's future was Mustafa, Mahidevran's son, widely admired by the military and viewed by many as the rightful heir. After years of tension, Suleiman ordered Mustafa's execution, a moment historians still debate. Some believe it was an act of paranoia by the aging sultan, while others suspect Roxolana's political maneuvering played a role. What is clear is that this act eliminated the greatest rival to Roxolana's sons. Roxolana's rise marked the beginning of what historians call the Sultanate of Women, a period of roughly a century in which imperial wives, mothers, and daughters held significant political influence, shaping succession, diplomacy, and even war. Yet her power also made her a target of rumor and legend. European ambassadors described her as a witch who bewitched Suleiman, accusing her of using magic and poison stories that mixed truth, fear, and fascination. Within Ottoman society, some admired her as a patron of the poor and pious. Others whispered she had overstepped, corrupting the natural order of the Sultanate. Roxolana died in 1558, long before her beloved Suleiman, who mourned her deeply. Instead of being buried anonymously like most concubines, she received a grand mausoleum next to the Suleymaniye Mosque, where pilgrims still visit today. Her son, Selim II, ascended the throne, ensuring her bloodline continued to rule the empire. Her legacy survived not only in stone and history books, but in the very shape of Ottoman politics. Today, Roxolana is remembered not merely as a slave or seductress, but as a complex woman who overcame unimaginable odds. Her story, from being dragged from a burning village to standing at the center of imperial power, reminds us how history can be changed not just by warriors or kings, but by the will and intelligence of those once thought powerless. From chains to a throne, from captivity to influence, Roxolana's story reminds us that history is often shaped by the most unexpected people. So next time you think a single life can't change an empire, remember the slave who became an empress.